Hey, welcome in, everybody. Happy Tuesday night, the first Tuesday live stream that is a game week live stream. Hey, everybody. CJ Vogel, Rod Babers, Matthew produces, and we are off and running 4 days out to the Texas opener with Colorado State. We'll talk about it, preview it, and take your thoughts and questions as the Longhorns embark on a very exciting and very optimistic 2024 college football season. Hopefully, you're as excited about this season and this Saturday as Steve Sarkisian is, because he's pretty pumped up about Saturdays, and we're ready to go. The first of 12 Saturdays, hopefully beyond that for the Longhorns, certainly 7 home games. And here we go. Guys, how we doing? Everybody ready? You got games to talk about? Rod, you actually have film to watch and quarterbacks to break down and receivers to see. And how we doing on our film watching, my friend?
Doing great on the film watching, man. I've actually started watching some Michigan. I'm looking ahead. I hope our team's not doing that, but I'm already looking ahead. CJ, we broke down Colorado State a while ago, and so I broke down some Colorado State, and I think it's going to be a really interesting matchup considering the styles of play in week 1 and 2. I love this. You got an air raid team in week 1 that wants to air it out, throw it 45 times, and then in week 2 you're gonna face a team that wants to play bully ball and run in power sets and 22 personnel. So I think you end up you're really gonna test the extremes that this defense can adapt to in the first couple of weeks. So I'm looking forward to it.
Well, let me ask you this before I get CJ involved, Gerard. As a DB, when you hear air raid, what are we thinking this week? What's the game plan back there? What are Blake Giddy and Terry Joseph talking about when you got the top receiver? They're going to throw it 45, 50 times. You're thinking, got to be ready, but also got some opportunities.
Oh, I think you just said it right there. These guys, they should be, if I'm a DB back there, man, they should be licking their chops. They should be salivating. As my man CJ knows, Brendan Fowler, Nicolosi, he's a gunslinger. He's got some talent. He also will throw you a few. All right. He'll take some unnecessary chances, make some ill-advised decisions with the football. At least that was last year. He could have grown in that time as a player, but he will take some chances with the football. And I think the Longhorn defense should be feeling very opportunistic in this game. 16 interceptions last year for him. And I think ultimately, what I think the struggle is going to be is actually they may get their hands on a couple of interceptions and hands on a couple of balls versus Colorado State. I think the real struggle is probably going to be, can the pass rush actually get home? What people don't appreciate about Colorado State is actually they were one of the better pass protection units in the country last season. They threw it, but tied a top 10 rate in all of college football, but they also protected the passer really well. Only 14 sacks allowed last season. That's something Nicolosi does really well, is feeling pressure. They get the ball out quickly, 2.6 seconds time to throw. It's hard for your pass rush to get there when you got 2.6 seconds to do it. So I talked to Alex Okafor about this, and he said, well, when you can't become a pass rusher, when the quick game and the quarterback, when their timing is really precise, and it really it kind of hurts the pass rush, discourages the pass rush, if you will. That's when you got to get your hands up and you got to start to clog up those passing windows. So that's going to be a test for the defensive line in this game, because you can tell that watching film, getting the ball out quickly, that's paramount for them. And it works as an insulation for their pass protection.
Well, and interesting, CJ, because the Longhorns team they saw at the end of the year last year, the Sugar Bowl with Washington, Michael Penix was great at sliding in the pocket, avoiding the pressure, getting the ball out. Yep. It's a good early test, CJ, for this secondary that we think is, as Rod calls it, more sticky, more aggressive, ability to cover better. This is a good early test for this defense on the back end after the way the season ended back early January.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a great opportunity for them to come out and kind of silence some of the folks who might be doubting them, right? Of course, when you look at what the big offseason topic has been for the Texas Longhorns, it has been that secondary. Excuse me. Does that secondary play more cohesively? Is there better communication? Is there some sort of way that that they're going to be definitively better? Well, you're going to be tested week 1. And I think this will be a great opportunity, not just for the secondary, but for that pass rush as well, to see how well they work complementary of one another, right? Yep. That's been a big conversation as well, as you're expecting probably one of the most active front sevens in recent memory with Texas, with all the options that they can throw at teams that like to throw the ball pretty often. Colorado State's one of them. Now, of course, that does pose the question, how much will Texas go into their bag with the packages, the NASCAR package, some of these 3 or 4 pass rushing options with Colin Simmons and Colton Vasek and Baron Sorrell. How often are they going to kind of dive into that? Probably not too much, but this more than anything allows you to get a good test early before SEC play starts up, where you will be met with a guy and Jeff Lebby who likes to throw the football a lot and has that run and gun kind of offensive scheme where if you're not cohesive in your secondary or you don't have a pass rush up front, you're in for a long day regardless of the talent level or difference thereof you're expecting between two teams like Mississippi State and Texas this year.
Rod, it's interesting. You mentioned the contrast of week 1, week 2, right? I mean, I think that's got to be a good thing for Sark and this staff. You get challenged in that back end, like CJ just said, for week 1, and then week 2 is going to be totally different. It's going to be the big guys up front being tested, kind of bone on bone. That's if you're Sark and you're thinking long term, you're thinking 17 games and all the way to January. You want to find that out pretty early of where you are and what needs to be fixed within both of those realms of your defense.
Yeah, no, that's why I love the first 2 game sample size for Texas. I think it's perfect for you to troubleshoot before you go into SEC play. You'll learn a lot about your secondary, your back seven. And as my man CJ mentioned there, kind of the cohesion, the continuity, the communication in that back seven, which last season they struggled with that at times. And then you'll learn about the front seven and everything you need to know about their front seven in week 2, because they're going to be playing hardball ball, which is bully ball, and they're going to run downhill with power packages. So and honestly, I think just looking at Colorado State, and CJ, you look at this too. You look at the interior offensive line for Colorado State. That really is the strength of the Colorado State offensive line. Now, I'm not saying they're going to be able to push around Texas, but if they want to run the football, and they were last year bottom 20 in college football running the football, so they're just a poor running team, period. But that's not what they prioritize, and that's not their identity. But the left guard, Alex Foster, 17 starts. The center, who actually has a chance to play on Sundays, he's a really good player. Jacob Gardner, 45 starts. 34 starts for Drew Moss at right guard. That's the heart and soul of that offensive line, and that's where all their experience is. And if they're going to try to run the football, don't be surprised, because they're not going to beat Texas to the edge. They're not going to be able to establish a run on the perimeter. Texas is way too fast for that. They're going to always be able to keep contained, especially with how deep the edges are. Texas has question marks on the interior defensive line. Even we have question marks about that. I wonder if they'll decide, if Colorado's going to decide, if we run the football, let's go with our veteran presence on the O-line, which is their interior, versus their question mark, versus the uncertainty on their defensive front after losing Sweat and Murphy, which is the interior D-line. And don't be surprised if they try some inside running game versus Texas. Why not? Just to test it out. I think you may get some of that early on too.
I bet they do go that route, Rod. I think they do test the middle before they test the edges. And for that reason alone, who's beating David Bendo or Anthony Hill to the outside from that running back room? This isn't a knock on Colorado State's running backs, but you could say this probably for most of the opponents Texas will play this year. That's speed at linebacker, something Texas has an abundance of and is one of the biggest strengths in this front seven. If I'm Texas, I'm looking and saying, hey, we got to clog the middle and force everything laterally. Of course, that's the goal of all defenses, right? Don't let them get vertically north and south down the field. But for Colorado State, that's, of course, the entire agenda, saying, yeah, I know we're not going to beat Anthony Hill to the sideline. We're not going to beat David Benda to the sideline, but we're going to try to beat them to a gap, or we're going to try to beat them up the middle with some sort of disguise with a pulling guard or a pulling tight end that maybe be a bit misleading, right? Try to play some games with their eyes and beat them that way. I think that's what we see long term in the run game for opponents against Texas, because again, that's speed.
Agreed.
We saw it with Overshown and Ford, right? Overshown sideline to sideline. Anthony Hill, more of that kind of mold, but that physicality is going to come with it. So I'm hopeful that linebacking group right now kind of makes up for whatever lacks of production that we might see after no more Sweat or Murphy this year. But at the end of the day, I think this rush defense is going to be pretty solid.
Yeah, and that'll be interesting. I like the conversation right there, guys, because yes, Colorado State's a veteran team. They're one of these older teams that Reminds a little bit of last year's Rice matchup in Wyoming. Got teams that ended up making bowl games down the road after Texas beat them. But veteran players, they were 5-7 a year ago, but lost a bunch of one-score games, 3 or 4 one-score games. They could flip it, and a lot of those guys are back on both sides of the ball. But that's what you want to see is their 43 start guards and interior against Alfred Collins, because everyone's hoping to see Alfred Collins take another step. He should be better than those guys. Same with the Vernon Broughton. Let's go mano a mano and see where that's at. That's what we'll be watching. And I saw your tweet from the Sark availability Monday, CJ, that kind of quoting what Sark said, that if you're on our 2 deep, you're going to play in the first half of this game. You're going to be on the field. Looks like the weather is going to be better than we could have anticipated. Temperatures could be in the high 80s. Could be some cloud cover. It's beautiful out right now here in Austin, Texas. If you're listening elsewhere, it's probably in the mid 80s right now. There's been some clouds and rain rolling through. That's kind of the forecast. So you'll take that. But Sark was very clear that if you're on our 2 deep, if you're 44 in, you're going to be playing in the first half of this game.
And that's how it should be, right? This is the season opener. You schedule these games early for a reason. It's to get you right. Of course, you like the big test week 2 that we've seen against Alabama, and going back a few years, right? USC was in this slot. Some really impressive non-conference matchups to give you a true test of what your team can do. But at the end of the day, it's your conference games that matter, and it's your conference games that you have to prepare for a long term. This is a great season opener, and it's a great opportunity for, again, Texas to exercise some of the demons from 2023 to get them right long term. As a result, you also have to combat the game of football. And with football comes injuries, because it is a physical game. Texas has already been bitten a little bit by the injury bug this year, unfortunately. But you have to get those guys that are in that second and third team right now ready for if their time comes. And that's exactly what I expect Texas to do. Sarkisian said last year, it was 33 guys that were 33 guys on the defensive side of the ball that saw snaps in the first half. That's pretty ridiculous. And now I know I had a conversation earlier this week, Aaron, about what that weather might look like on Saturday. And Texas wants it to be as hot as possible.
Yeah.
They know that they have the bodies, they have the horses that can withstand that heat, because, of course, they've been practicing in it all off season. And, of course, dating back to the summer and spring, they want it to be hot. They're not looking for 80 degrees, because that's what Colorado State's been practicing in. So they know that that's going to be an advantage for them if it is very hot. Of course, I'm sure everybody else is saying, hey, let's tone down that weather just a little bit. But Texas wants it to be hot. They're going to rotate a lot of guys, and this will be a great opportunity to see what Colton Vossick can do, what Leon Galafal can do, what Jelani McDonald can do. A number of these cornerbacks who we expect to play at some point this year, Warren Roberson, do they take those sophomore steps into being able to play the long term for the Longhorns? We'll get a good look at that on Saturday.
Yeah, and Rod, it's something we'll be talking about during our in-game watch on Saturday. We're going to be back doing the watch along with us. Sark has said all off-season into the camp, we want to be 44 deep. When we go to our next guy, we don't want to drop off. We don't want to slide. This is a great game for that. That if they do go to the backs, is there the ones could be dominating, but you don't want to see the twos come in and all of a sudden Colorado State starts getting some movement and moving the ball. That's what will kind of show some growth early. If you're looking for Colorado, Texas is a 32.5-point favorite, 33-point favorite. I saw Bill Connolly's SP Plus came out today. It's saying he's got 50-9 as the projected score. But Rod, as a watcher of film and a scout of these games, if Sark really wants 44 deep and no drop off from ones to the twos, we'll be able to tell that pretty quick while we're watching this game.
Yeah, and I think, for some positions, we right now could project that, right? There's probably not going to be a lot of drop offs from the ones to the twos, wide receiver. The edge position, right? You're really deep right there. You probably got 3 starters there at the edge position. So there's some positions where I believe you got that kind of depth. The offensive line, I think you got a lot of depth on the offensive line too. I think ultimately what Sark wants to see is, like you said, he wants to see that consistency, a baseline of consistency from the young guys, because that's what young players have a tough time establishing, is that baseline of consistency. But Sark understands, and we've already seen it. You're going to have injuries in football. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when it happens. You just don't know what position is going to hit. And the more reps these young guys get, the quicker they can establish that baseline. That's why in practice he talks about having the ones to go against the threes and the twos versus the fours. He just needs these guys to get as many reps as possible. And then you'll see some guys' development accelerate. They'll kind of have an expedited rate of development, and other guys, it'll take them some time. And Sarkis talked about that, right? It's like everybody doesn't develop the same way. It takes some of these guys, 3-4 years to get where they need to be. Some guys, you'll start to see the flashes in year one immediately. And that's what you're starting to look for. You're looking for the signs to see, all right, so how can I adjust the timeline on these players? All right, you know what? That guy is going to end up redshirting. Oh, this guy can help us right away. Matter of fact, this guy needs to be in the rotation. This guy needs to be in the 2 deep. And then kind of determining throughout the season how they progress, how they get better based on the reps they get. So I think ultimately in this game, and he has said it, they don't even he doesn't really want to have a depth chart. And they asked him about that, right? CJ was like, actually, I prefer to let game one still be kind of the, really guys still competing and trying to find their way on the depth chart. So he doesn't even consider game one to already have a solidified depth chart. He still wants the guys competing for spots on it. And then after game one, it's still kind of an open audition, if you will.
Well, it should be like that throughout the entire season, right? To an extent, saying, hey, your job's not guaranteed. If we believe that someone's going to outperform you, or if you're not living up to the standards that we hope to see from you on the field, well, hey, your job's not guaranteed. So I like that. I like the idea of extending those competitions later into the season. Of course, when you play a Michigan or you play a Georgia or an Oklahoma, you'd like to have the guys that can go out there and perform to the highest of levels. Mm-hmm. But at this point in the year, hey, show me everybody. Let me make sure that my safeties and cornerbacks are the best that I've got, right? Let me make sure that my tight ends, that the combinations between the two of them, or if I need to have one go-to guy on the field, that he can do everything that my offense asks. That's what, games like today or Saturday are for, as well as, some UTSAs and ULMs later on.
All right, guys, we're about a quarter in, and we're going to get into the cut down day coming up. Rod, I know you've been a part of that as an NFL player.
Yes, sir.
Bad days, but Tuesday at 3:00, so about 4 hours ago, was rosters down to 53 in the NFL. We'll have a look at some of the Longhorns that are going to be comfortable and some that are not feeling so good today. But speaking of protecting all your stuff, let me tell you about our great friend and Texas alum, Mark Saunders. Are you in good hands is the fair question when you put your head on the pillow tonight. Are all your things protected, all your stuff, right? We try to accumulate stuff and acquire things, but with more than 35 years of experience with Texas alum Mark Saunders, you go to bed every night knowing that all of your stuff is covered. He's an all-state agent. He's the only insurance agent you need. Everything from your home, your car, your boat, your motorcycle, RVs, ATVs, lake houses, whatever it might be. If you're looking for someone local, Austin, Round Rock area, give Texas all-state agent Mark Saunders' office a call tomorrow. 512-218-8571. Of course, 512 here in the ATX, 218-8571. So ask yourself when you go to bed tonight, is everything covered? Am I all in good hands? Is the bill where it needs to be? Could I do better? Well, find out. With more than 35 years of experience, you will be with Texas alum Mark Saunders. Plus, you can talk some football and be ready for the tailgate on Saturday. 512-218-8571. And we thank Mark very much for being a part of the Tuesday live stream and a part of the On Texas Football family, all the folks that get it done for us and make it happen for you so we can talk Texas football all the time, all day long here on the On Texas Football channel. And thanks for making it grow. Guys, Rod, I don't want to bring up a sore subject, but you played in the National Football League. These are the days that kind of wake up with that pit in your stomach.
Yes,
you're hoping
sir.
Things go your way, and that's just the way it goes. It's a very hard profession to be a part of, right?
Yeah, man, it's tough. That's just the reality of it. Everybody understands it. Nobody really likes it. And I've gotten that tap on the shoulder too many times. And you're sitting in the locker room and you're just praying that usually it's the person, it's the player personnel guy, or maybe it's for a different team, it's someone else, but usually it's a player personnel director. And man, you see him and he's walking down the hall. And you're just hoping, please don't come to me. Just don't come.
Not me.
Keep walking. Keep walking. Yeah, just please keep walking. Don't slow your roll at all. And then it happens inevitably. I've been that guy, like I said, multiple times. Bring your playbook. Coach wants to see you. Coach really never ever wants to see you. I mean, you can be on the team for multiple years and coach never ever wants to see you. You may talk to coach, but he don't want to see you. You don't have to go see him for a personal meeting in this room. Honestly, I've only been in the coach's office for bad stuff. I don't think I've ever been in the coach's office for good stuff, in the head coach's office in the NFL. So, you bring to the head coach's office, and it's usually kind of the same spiel they give you. And it's kind of like when a guy's breaking up with a girl, they always kind of come up with some excuse or something. It's not you, it's me. And that's usually how it is. It's like, hey man, it's not you, it's the numbers. That's the most, I would say that's the most common reason that you get. It's not you, you're a great player. It's a numbers game. We had to cut somebody, and it was you. But and then they'll tell you there's a lot of coaches here that fought for you and wanted you to stay, but ultimately came down to a numbers game. And we may call you back. That's always said. We may call you back.
Yeah.
We may call you back. You're on the short list. Yeah, we may call you back. Matter of fact, we got a practice squad spot. We're thinking about you for that practice squad spot. So that I've probably gotten that spiel probably 3 or 4 times when I got cut, and it doesn't hurt any less.
Rod,
well, I mean, and CJ, I mean, think about it. I mean, we all have professions, and we don't like to be let go or even considered letting go. But this is your life. I mean, this is what you've done your whole life. For guys like Rod, and then these guys today, that's all you've ever done. That's all you've ever wanted to do. I mean, that's a different mindset. I mean, you get into a different career. All of you out there, one thing doesn't work out, there's another thing. But this is it. This is what you've worked for the whole time. That's a whole different level of despair when that comes down, because it can be the end of the goal of a lifetime. But CJ, that's where we're at. I mean, it's only 53 on a roster. There's only 32 teams, and you work your tail off and keep going. But who are the guys that got cut today? Who made it? And what is the NFL roster situation like for the lifetime Longhorns?
Yeah, definitely. We'll start with the 2024 draft class, because those are the guys that I think most people were most excited to hear about, freshly into the NFL. Good news. Not a single one of those 11 draft picks ended up getting cut. And Rod, I was going to ask you, do they drop the red tag in your locker? And is that what is the movie Major League, where everybody walks in and preseason or training camp, and they see the tag and
no, I didn't get the tag, man, but I will tell you, they still, when I was getting cut, they give you a trash bag. You talk about a multi-billion-dollar business that gives you a trash bag to pack your stuff up and get the hell out. That's how they do you.
Everybody a training camp bag, like a duck camp bag or something.
No, I got a trash bag, man. That's every time it was a trash bag. Like, hey, take your stuff. Let's go.
That's wrong.
You're leaving that facility homeless. But again, luckily, no Longhorns were cut from the 53-man roster. Now, a few of them will have to take a little bit longer to get onto the 53-man roster. Of course, Ryan Watts, unfortunately, season-ending IR. He will not be making his NFL debut this upcoming season. Christian Jones dealing with a bit of an ankle foot injury, and Keelan Robinson will both be starting the season on the physically unable to perform the IR list, as will Jonathan Brooks, who is recovering from obviously his ACL down there in Carolina. However, Xavier Worthy, Jordan Whittington, obviously he made it in Los Angeles. He's one of the guys where you ask anybody or you hear from anybody in that Rams program, the franchise right now, they're loving themselves some Jordan Whittington. The returns reports have been tremendous so far. Tavondre Sweat, Byron Murphy, Jalen Ford made it in New Orleans. So all is well for the Longhorns in the 2024 class, of course, dealing with a bit of injuries there. But I did want to mention Lil Jordan Humphrey was released by Denver. Deontay Foreman, I believe not too long ago, he was immobilized, put on a backboard, and he was taken out of training camp via ambulance. I don't know. I believe he was let go again today as well. But Colin Johnson out of Chicago, unfortunately, he had 2 touchdowns in an earlier preseason game. We know Chicago spent basically every dollar they could for Caleb Williams on their receiving core this offseason. With Keenan Allen coming in, they gave DJ Moore a big amount of money. And, of course, Rome Odunze in the first round. Unfortunately for Colin Johnson, not enough was shown this training camp. He was let go as well. But overall, this will probably be the highest amount of Longhorns in the NFL this year. Sammy Ehlinger got he made the team, the 53-man roster, and they might need him sooner than later with the way that quarterback situation is looking. Of course, Anthony Richardson dealt with injuries all of 2023, and Joe Flacco is just about as old as Father Time himself. So we'll see Sammy Ehlinger at some time this year, hopefully sooner than later.
Well, that Ehlinger one's interesting, Rod, because Shane Steichen's the head coach there, and he came from Philadelphia, where he was with Jalen Hurts, right? And last year they had Gardner Minshew behind Anthony Richardson, but that's the RPO game. That's the tush push where it started with Philadelphia. You just wonder if Sam's got an opportunity there if something happens. Joe Flacco is the backup. He's 40 years old, for crying out loud. He's not pushing any tushes, I don't think. I mean, that's not going to happen. But interested to see, and obviously Anthony Richardson couldn't stay healthy last year. You wonder if he can this. Would love to see Sam get an opportunity. And Rod, this. I mean, 11 guys drafted and 11 guys make a roster. That's pretty good. That is pretty rare for all 11 guys who got drafted to still be hanging around after this Tuesday. Yeah,
it's a testament to the development factor with these coaches. I mean, they've done a great job. I mean, that's the number one biggest difference between the Sark regime and the previous coaches who didn't meet the expectations in the standard of Texas. It's development, guys. It's not talent acquisition. Texas has been acquiring talent via traditional recruiting. Now you got the transfer portal, but Texas always had as much, if not more, talent than everybody else in the conference they were playing in the Big 12. The biggest issue was that talent was not maximized and it wasn't being developed for it to reach its ultimate potential. And right now, Sarkis and the coaches are doing a great job of getting players to exceed expectations. And I think that they've really done now. They've established themselves as a program where guys go straight. I mean, we heard, was it Isaiah Bond, who came to Texas and said, no, I'm going to Texas because I want to be developed into an NFL player and I want to increase my draft stock. And it's crazy, just 3-4 years ago, the narrative was the exact opposite. Guys were fleeing away from Texas and even the backyard of Texas. Austin, Andrew McCool was a prime example. They were going to other institutions and other programs because they were known for developing talent, and University of Texas was not known for that. We're talking about a Garrett Wilson or somebody like that. So now you've been able to flip the script in really a 4 or 5 year span, and it's a testament to Sark and the coaches, man. They've done a damn good job with talent development. There ain't no doubt about it.
Well, isn't that one of the exciting things, Rod and CJ, about this team is this program is a lot of the guys that they flipped and developed that are now in the NFL. What is this? Someone throwing
Joe Flacco.
Joe Flacco. I love it.
Man out there. Hey, you made the playoffs last year, man. Joe Flacco. Hey,
comeback player of the year. I love it. But isn't that the I think that's one of the more exciting / fascinating / can't wait to see it conversations about this team, because the guys that we're watching in the NFL right now, in large measure, this staff inherited. They didn't recruit most of those guys, and they still flipped them. They still took Christian Jones and made him an undraftable player into a 4th-round draft pick, and Jalen Ford, lowest-rated player in that recruiting class, into a draft pick, who's sticking and staying. Those kind of guys. I mean, you go across the board with that. Well, what does this staff do with the guys they've identified and they've recruited? And that's going to be, we talk about secondaries and pass rush, and that's really the encouraging part. That, let's be honest, Texas wants to join and be part of that elite company that Georgia and Alabama and Ohio State have lived in for the last decade, Clemson before them. And that's how you do it. You recruit the best players, you stack recruiting classes, and then you develop those players to their maximum in most cases. And now you have a program that competes at the elite levels. That's what I'm looking for this year in a big way. We talked about the top 44 and the no drop-off. That's development, Rod, from taking the guys you've identified on your recruiting board, brought them in, and now you're developing those players. Yeah,
and that's why the potential of this Sark blueprint is so immense, right? They haven't even really tapped into the guys that they have envisioned to fulfill those roles in his, with his blueprint, right? They've just started to kind of build this team with their guys, especially on the defense side of the ball. I'll say offense, they probably got things going a little bit quicker because Sark, I believe, started the roster construction on the offensive side of the ball. But on defense, I think they're just starting to get the bodies and the type of frames and the type of skill sets that they value and prioritize on defense to fulfill that vision that they have. So that's why it's really exciting that, like you said, they've proven they can develop, and they did that with guys they inherited for the most part. Now they get to do that with players that they recruited specifically with a vision for, specifically with an actual developmental plan for. The other guys that came in, they just had to kind of look at the raw materials they were given and say, okay, let's make the best of it. Let's do the best with we have been left with. Let's do the best we can with that. Now they've actually been able to go out there and recruit specific skill sets to try to construct this Texas football program just the way they see it and just the way they visualize it. So I'm excited. I don't think we know exactly how it's going to look in 3 or 4 years potentially, but right now it's a really, really exciting model.
Yeah. Well, and you know, the other side of that, CJ, is the player side of it. There's proof of concept. You know, that if there's no doubting, there's nobody in the locker room going, oh man, I'm not sure about these guys. I'm not sure this is the right way to go, which I'm sure was happening before behind the scenes, because that just happens in locker rooms. But there's a proof of concept, and you talk to these players all the time that, you know, do my job, do it like they say, and things are going to happen on the field. And for me personally, big picture, that's pretty powerful both ways. Yeah,
definitely. Two things there. First off, long were the days where Texas prospects and players and guys on roster were negatively recruiting for Texas, right? When recruits were on campus, there was a time, and not too long ago, where some of the players were saying, hey man, you're better off going somewhere else. And that's completely changed, right? We could talk to a number of the prospects that we've had in this 2025 class on programs here at On Texas Football. Jump on at any point and say, yeah, I can call anybody in my position group right now, and they would give me honest advice and feedback about my recruitment and the University of Texas. That's changed 180 degrees right there. And then two, I actually bumped into a freshman on campus the other day as I was leaving the Sarkisian presser. And essentially I asked him, I was like, hey man, did you think, that fall camp was as tough as it was going to be? And he kind of looked back and he goes, yeah, it was much tougher than I was originally anticipating. And that's even after a tough summer and a tough spring, in which these guys had to, basically make the jump from being a high school senior into being a college football athlete. And it gives you an idea of what this staff expects from this group, right? This early or this close to season kicking off. They're still pushing the envelope for those guys to work hard and to improve each and every day, even with game planning and kind of all of that approach right now being pushed towards the schematics of, Colorado State and what's to come later in the year. But I thought that was really interesting, is those two things have changed quite a bit. And I think a lot of that credit it should be going to Torrey Becton and his staff for making the offseason a place where Texas and their roster knows that they can get better, but it's also not a miserable place to be and a place that you want to be at. Whereas, obviously here at Texas.
Yeah. I mean, Rod, you've said it ad nauseum about steel sharpening steel. And when you start to acquire this amount of talent and, there might be not a lot of drop off from the ones to the twos, you want that. You want that high level of competition every practice and raise the bar to make sure that, some of the tougher days you're going to have are on the practice field middle of the week, and then Saturday becomes a little bit easier in a lot of these games that they're going to play here in September. Roger, muted.
Sorry about that. I think ultimately you want to make sure guys are just playing their best in critical moments, right? And under pressure, and that make sure that these guys know how to respond well to adversity, and that you are making sure that you have the most competitive environment possible. And Sark talked about that, right? He said that's why it's big for them to do ones-on-ones as much as possible. Say he learned that from Nick Saban and Pete Carroll, to try to keep the competitive edge and to make sure that these guys understand you should always be being pushed not only by the people in your room, the guys in your room, whether they be adding more and more talent, upgrading talent in that room, but also being pushed by the guys you go up against every day in practice. And that's what happened to me. I mean, you adding guys like Huff Daddy and adding Cedric Griffin and Aaron Ross and adding great players to that room only pushed me to be better. Nathan Vasher only pushed me to be better, or otherwise, I don't keep that job. And going to practice against guys like Roy Williams, I knew Roy wasn't first round talent, but It is the confirmation, that confidence that I'm going up against a first round guy every day. And if I can shut him down, then not only should NFL scouts take notice, but I should have the confidence that I'm not going to go up against better talent than the guy I face every day in practice. And that's what we had. I think that's what the guys are developing now. That's what those teams in the mid 2000s had. So I think ultimately that's what, Ohio State can say that. And, maybe Georgia can say that, and Alabama can say that. There's not many schools around the country that have that, that luxury. But I think Sark is building that here in Texas. And, I was reading an article the other day about Derek Stingley, and they were talking about they essentially drafted Derek Stingley as high as they did because of what he did at LSU's practice, not because of what he did on the field. Because he was going up against Jamar Chase and Justin Jefferson in practice. And the scouts saw this film of him going up against those guys in practice, shutting them down. He had a great freshman year, but the truth is the rest of his college career was pretty, above average. He was hurt most of the time, but the scouts were looking at his practice film and saying, man, if he went up against the best receivers who are now in the NFL and Justin Jefferson and Jamar Chase are two of the best, and he was able to shut them down consistently in practice. You know what? I don't need to necessarily see him do it consistently with a baseline every day in college and every game, because I know he's capable of that. And so, it matters, man. Football's a sport. You practice more than you play. So you got to be able to refine that skill set and cultivate that craft in practice.
It reminds me, I wanted to ask you, Rod, I was thinking today is Roy Williams Day to the football. It's 4 days out. Yep. Give me your best Roy Williams story. Best for Roy Williams. I mean, you were there with maybe the greatest receiver in Texas history, talent-wise. What was there? When I'd say Roy Williams, what comes to mind 4 days out to the opener?
Oh, man. Roy was just a freak of nature, man. He first of all, when he was on campus, Roy didn't like to party. Roy didn't go out. Roy was all about ball. Roy was all about ball, man. He didn't go out and party much. That came later on in his career because I was with him in Detroit too. So I got to see the transformation. That came a little bit later on for him, and he was so focused on ball, and he was such a great player, man. I remember when he first came on campus, and I had never seen a receiver with that up close and personal with the combination of skills that Roy Williams had. At the size, I mean, you go back and look at his track stuff. He was a freakish track athlete. He's a freakish basketball player, just an all-around, like I said, elite athletic profile, period. And I loved going up against, I insisted on it going up against Roy in practice as much as I could. Once I got to be a senior, then as a senior, you can pretty much kind of boss hog reps in one-on-ones, and I would always boss hog Roy reps. Me and Nasty Nate, Nathan Vasher, we split Roy Williams reps, man. Nobody else getting those. Those are mine. Those are valuable. All right, that guy's going to be – and we were right. He was drafted top 10, something like that in the NFL. We were right. And even when I was with Detroit, they had just drafted what's his name? Charles Rogers.
Oh, yeah.
Michigan State. Yeah, they had just drafted him. And so I was with the Detroit Lions, and I remember the coach's Mooch was up there. And I remember them asking me, hey, man, what about Roy Williams? And I told him straight up, because it was me. Big Sean was up there with us. Big Sean Rogers. Corey Redding was up there with us. So we had a lot of Longhorns. Later on, Will Matthews. We had a good number of Longhorns up there. And I remember them asking, like, hey, what about, Roy Williams? And I remember telling them, like, hey, man, if y'all drafted Charles Rogers and y'all thought he was good, wait y'all get a hold of Roy Williams. Draft that dude. Because if y'all drafted him in the first round and y'all thought he was going to be a game changer, I was like, Roy Williams he's much better than that dude. And I respected Charles Rogers, but Roy Williams was just a better player overall. And they drafted Roy Williams. And I want to say one of the first practice he came out there, he ran a 6 route, just 10, 12 yards and across the field. And they threw the football and he caught it. And he caught it like this. It was a one-handed catch, and he caught it like this and kept running with a one-handed catch. And then it was an oohs and ahs, and then all the Longhorn guys like, we told y'all, man, he's legit. So Roy's he's always been a freakish athlete, man. That's all I remember. I will say this: I don't think he's the greatest receiver in Texas football history. I think that's Jordan Shipley. But I do think he's second. He's probably second, no doubt.
Well, that I misspoke, but that was awesome. That was a really cool story. Appreciate that, Rod. Real quick before I want to get to another super stud with an athletic profile, also to the super chats, but I wanted to play this cut from Sark on Monday, talking about what we just talked about, which is competition and best on best and getting better and using practice to do that. Anything? Can we hear it? Is there audio? All right, we'll see if we can get that worked on.
Guys, with Pete and Nick,
Nice.
there was a real belief in competition, and there was a real belief in we do a lot of ones on ones, good on good, team run, team period, scrimmages, and that's what those guys instilled in me. It's not just about the scout team and feel good. Oh, all the plays work and all the blitzes work. It's going against one another and failing and winning. And so that's the first part. I think there's a healthy dose of competition in our program on a daily basis. I think the second part, both those guys did a great job of, and Coach Saban says it the best. The worst thing that can happen to you is play bad and win, because most people are result oriented and they see we won, and so it was good enough. And I think the mark of a really good coach is able to identify areas where we need to improve as we continue to grow as a program. And that's on a daily basis on the practice field, but that's also throughout the season, right? We have to continue to get better over the next 5-6 months. We just didn't practice up until this point and then, okay, this is as good as we can be. We have to continually find areas to improve. And I thought both those guys did a great job in my time with them at doing that.
All right, that was to your point, Rod, about Pete Carroll, Nick Saban, and good on good, steel sharpens steel. That's awesome right there. That was a great story about Roy, rolled right together. But CJ, as far as I heard Rod say, the athletic skill set, I have not heard your thoughts on Jonah Williams. I know you guys have talked about it, but man, that's the kind of thing when I hear Roy Williams and then what we read and see about Jonah Williams, same kind of thing. All district player MVP as a sophomore and a junior and a senior, basketball, baseball. That's freakish kind of stuff that the Longhorns got a commitment from on Saturday.
Yeah, definitely. There's a few freshmen that we've seen over the past couple of years since Sark and Co. have arrived here in Austin that the minute that they step foot on campus, they know, the staff knows, the players know, the whole program kind of has an understanding of what those kids are going to turn into. Obviously, this year it's been Ryan Wingo. A year ago, CJ Baxter. You heard the hype in these practice sessions and training camp going into opening week. And again, I think when we're at this point in 2025, kind of inching up closer to the season, all of that talk is going to be about Jonah Williams. And he's a tremendous three-sport star down in Galveston Bowl. One of the things that we've learned about him is his football IQ is through the roof. And everybody that we've talked to, his trainer, his head coach, his baseball coach, everybody down there at Galveston, they've all got something to say about his brain, the way that he goes about thinking about the game, the way he processes the game, and the way that he makes plays on the field because he's just a bit smarter than everybody else. To add that in with just an absolutely incredible level of athleticism, I believe someone at 24/7 Sports, I forget the name now, but they made a freaks list of the best athletes in the 2025 class. Jonah Williams was number one. He could go pro in baseball. It looks like if he continues this path in football, he's going to go pro to the NFL as well. And that all comes from a number of different things, but that athleticism at 6'3", 210 right now, heck of an athlete. He runs 22.5 in the 200 meters. He's just a long, rangy guy that is more athletic than everybody, but knows about the game and diagnoses things much quicker than the average kid, average senior in high school at least. So heck of an addition for Texas, one that I'm sure the staff is over the moon for. And I'm certain Texas fans are very pleased with that one as well, as they should be. The highest rated defensive back commit in the history of Texas recruiting, dating back to the beginning of the 24/7 composite ranking. So take that for what it's worth, but a lot of expectations for Jonah Williams next fall.
That's unbelievable. And he probably he's on the honor roll and dates the prettiest girl and all that kind of stuff. That's pretty cool.
He's a great kid,
and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. Yeah. Gosh, yeah. What am I up to? But yeah, the highest rated, defensive back in Texas history, DBU, and he probably is better at baseball. Having watched his baseball film, that's just dumb. Whatever, God given, but that's awesome. And I love hearing that, Rod. That like Roy and like a lot of guys, you yourself. I mean, it's about the brain too. It's about the dedication to it, the work, and the way you play the game. God given stuff is one thing, but to have the understanding on the field, that's what separates the good from the great.
Yeah, and this kid is great. I mean, he really is. He's got greatness in him. I think I don't know how much he's going to focus on football because he really is a two-sport athlete. I mean, he can end up playing two sports legitimately, and getting drafted in both of the sports at a high level. I mean, he's got that kind of overall athletic freakishness. But I remember saying in my notes, if I could give him an awareness ratings like in a video game, it'd probably be a 98. He's got great speed, and his football instincts are just through the roof, and he's big. He's like 6'3". I mean, you can pack some weight on him. He can move around the defense if you want him to, and move to the linebacker depth if you need him to. I know he wants to play safety, but I would have him as a movable chess piece because I think he can do a lot of different things for you defensively. I think honestly the guy could win the Thorpe one day if he's focused on football. I think he's got that kind of upside, man.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
All right. Real quick, we saw a chat from Matthew, and I want to tell Rod about our friends at Hargrove Roofing. But throw that chat back up there, Matthew, about Roy Williams before we leave that topic. Somebody ran. I remember running against Roy in track. Jesus, I was a 10.5 guy. Last half of the 100 meters was breathtaking. Thank you, Pooh. Appreciate that. I mean, there's good and there's great, man. That's pretty awesome. I love that. And we'll get your super chats here in a minute. Want to hear your thoughts and answer your questions. But Rod, tell them about Hargrove Roofing.
No doubt, really excited our friends at Hargrove Roofing being a part of the On Texas football family with offices all over Louisiana and Arkansas, and of course the great state of Texas, including Austin. Hargrove Roofing will take care of all of your roofing needs, plus they're Longhorn friendly with partners like lifetime Longhorn Bert Arbin and lifetime Longhorn Stevie Lee. They are the most pro burnt orange roofing company out there. You can call them today for a free roof inspection. That's right, folks, free 99. Hargrove Roofing, you can hit them up at 512-645-3202 or visit hargroveroofing.com. Call them today. Know who's on your roof. That's with our friends over at Hargrove Roofing. Call them for basically the most reliable, superior customer service and the best roof inspections out there. They know what they're doing, and you'll know who's on your roof. Give them a call, 512-645-3202. That's hargroveroofing.com.
Great stuff right there, Rod. That's awesome. Yeah, my oldest son, they just bought a house last year at this time, and they already had to put a new roof on because of a hailstorm out in Maine or Elgin area. It happens, but as you said, know who's on your roof. It can happen quick on a brand new house even, or an older house. That's good stuff. All right, as we move forward, let's get some super chats. Matthew, if you got them, let's get I missed the info on the Michigan game, places to hang out with your guys, any updates. I can get you that, Robert. Appreciate that. I will actually, can you put that up on the board there, Matthew, the when you're going to Ann Arbor tailgate that we've been talking about here on the On Texas Tuesday live streams and all the live streams. We'll find that for you, Robert. Just hang with us. We'll make sure that gets put up. Appreciate you doing that. But that Michigan coming. How do Quinn stats look in man v zone? What about man v zone in the red zone? Wondering if that's part of the reason we stink in the red zone. Colin, thanks very much for that super chat. Rod, you've seen the film. What say you?
That's an interesting point. I haven't done the research, Colin. That's something interesting to look at. That could be compelling. Usually teams are playing man in the deeper you get into the red zone. Just easier that way to play man and match up in the red zone. So that's usually what you get deeper in the red zone, but you could see some zone. I think for Quinn, the big issue is, and this could be related to your question, is getting through progressions quicker. Everything happens faster in the red zone. The deeper you get, the more restricted the space is in the red zone. Everything happens a little bit faster. And even Sark has admitted that Quinn doesn't get deep into his progressions. He wants him to get deeper. He's going now, kind of 1, 2, maybe to 3. Sark would like him to go 1, 2, 3 to 4, maybe to 5 in terms of his progressions. Meaning you got to get through them quicker. Meaning he's also got to be able to buy himself time in the pocket, create time and create some more space in the pocket and feel the pressure. Don't stare at it so you can get deeper into the progressions. Well, in the red zone, I think that's a little bit tougher for him to get into a progression. So I think Sark may have kind of started cutting out more progression reads in the red zone and made things more just RPOs and half field reads for him. And that's probably just simplified for him. So, and maybe that is a problem too, that is very kind of a simplified passing game and it loses its sophistication down in the red zone. So I don't know if Sark ever figured it out. I'll see if I can do some research, Colin, on your man versus zone and looks, and see if I can find something about the way that looked in the red zone for Quinn.
Good stuff, Colin. If you have that graphic, Matthew, I'll put it up, or I can mention that the Texas at the Big House, a Blue Blood party, is coming up a week from Saturday. So we're inside 2 weeks to that event. There is a website. It's called the Texas Big House .party that you can go to and get tickets. And it's a pregame party for the 11 o'clock kick, or noon in Ann Arbor. It'll be a noon Eastern time game. And then there's an after party as well. All the details you guys need is at texasbighouse.party. Go there. You can buy tickets and make that thing happen. There you go. There it is right there. Texas at the Big House. They start in the morning early, and then they go till the afternoon. You buy tickets, you get drinks and all the fun, because obviously when you're up there, you don't want to just be wandering around hanging out with Michigan fans. You want to be hanging out with your own people. And there it is. Join us at the pregame festivities. Come by after and for postgame. Wait for your ride share or traffic to die down. Watch games on the big screen. 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. at the Big House. Well done. They did the very same thing, that same group in Tuscaloosa last year. And I talked to a lot of folks and who went to that and said it was awesome, because you're kind of like a lost soul. You're looking for burnt orange and a place to hang out with people that are your kind, and that can happen at the Michigan game in a couple of weeks.
I like that.
E. Hogan. There you go. E. Hogan, live in Onion Creek, played the original front nine this afternoon. Course in great shape. What are you guys hearing about the O-line and into week one? There are rumblings that Cam had a rough camp. All right, thank you, Clay. Appreciate that. Great super chat. Live from Onion Creek. I'm looking right out at the North Course right now, out of my window right here.
Thank you, Clay.
Thank you, Clay. Rumblings that Cam had a rough camp. Cam, you guys, is that Cam Williams that he's talking about?
Yep, that would be the one Cam. I will dispute that. I've heard Cam Williams has actually had a really solid camp at right tackle. Our Jerry Hamilton actually reported earlier last week that, hey, some NFL scouts could be talking, and I know that he still has to go do it, but they could be talking about Cam Williams being a potential one-and-done prospect for the NFL draft next year. So keep that in mind. Of course, Cam Williams has been going up against guys like Barron Sorrell, like Justice Finkley, all the way through his college career, despite not seeing that first group right now. Now he is, and he is the undisputed right tackle for the Texas Longhorns going into the season. Now, the guard spot might actually be where you start to look at some changes. And I'm not saying immediately, but I do think you see a rotation of 4 guys, week 1, week 2, week 3, and potentially even week 4 before Texas goes into week 5, the SEC opener against Mississippi State at home. Texas is going to have to figure out what their best offensive line looks like. Is it, or what's the combination of a Cole Hudson, a DJ, a Nato, and a Hayden Connor? They're going to have to figure out the 2 best of those 4 and go with that into the SEC play. Of course, I mentioned it earlier, but it was Cole Hudson who actually outsnapped DJ Campbell in Alabama, in Tuscaloosa a year ago around week 2. Now their snaps were pretty split. It was 43-35. So that gives you an idea of how often Kyle Flood will continue to cycle in his guards to make sure that his guys are ready at the position. They got that game experience. I bet we see some time of that at center as well, with Jake Majors potentially getting a breather earlier in games than not, just make sure that Hayden Connor and Cole Hudson and Connor Robertson have their snaps down to a T. But right now, I think Kelvin Banks is locked in, surefire left tackle. Cam Williams is your surefire locked in right tackle. Both of them have had very strong camps. Both of them have been tested probably to the best extent of their college careers with this edge room right now. So I do like the tackles. The guards are kind of where I'm looking at right now, saying there could be some revolving door, if you will, moving forward for the first month or so of the season.
Take me into that, CJ, a little bit more. And Rod, I want your thoughts, because, I mean, we'll be doing the in-game watch and the watch along. So we should be watching pretty early, maybe even against Colorado State, who is in the middle there. I mean, 78 and then Cam Williams on the other side are going to be in, but what's the rotation there that we should be watching for?
Yeah, I know we've seen Neto Umeozulu both at left guard and right guard at points this fall camp. He's been a guy that's gotten run with the first team towards the end of practice, as has Cole Hudson. And, of course, Cole's got run at all three positions, right? He had some time when Jake Majors went down over at center. Of course, so did Hayden Connor. So Kyle Flood's made it a point ever since he arrived at Texas. We have to have depth at center. And they've great success, right? Recruiting Connor Robertson, now Daniel Cruz in the mix there as well. But being able to cross-train all of these guys on the interior to multiple positions, it's very important. I believe there's a time a year ago in which Kelvin Banks got dinged up. Well, what did they do? They ended up throwing Hayden Connor out to left tackle. They bumped Cole Hudson up into left guard. And as a result, you kept that continuity from practice, kind of that same communication keys on the field at the same time, despite not having a Kelvin Banks. Of course, Kelvin was fine. He played it every game a year ago. But that's kind of what you need to have going into the SEC season. And Texas, again, Steve Sarkisian has said he's felt good about 8 to 9 offensive linemen on the roster this year going into the season. I'll see how much they go really into their snap counts or whatever following game one. But I do expect to see 8, 9 guys on the field before the end of the third quarter at the very earliest.
Right, I like this. I mean, if we take that cut we just heard from Sark talking about we're not a finished product this week, we got to keep getting better. And you grade the players, Pro Football Focus. I know the coaches at Texas and Analytics. The judgment in my mind in 2024 has to be, is that good enough to beat Georgia, right? Is that good enough on the interior to beat the best teams on our schedule? And just because we beat UTSA or we beat Mississippi State, all right, that's fine. But are we ready to play Georgia on October 19th? And is that block going to work against, those are the kind of things I remember that from the 05 season, that was the measuring stick. Was that going to beat USC? I mean, that's really the mindset I feel like is coming from the 40 acres right now.
Yeah, well, it should be about, the standard, right? Sark has talked about it. It's not just the standard of the program overall. It is the standard you play to each and every game. If you're playing to that standard and that standard is really high, that's a championship standard. That's essentially all it is. And that's what Georgia has established. That's what, Alabama has established. That's what Michigan just did, Ohio State in recent years. And that's where you're trying to get to the point where you play. Now, will you play like, at that championship level every game? No, there are going to be some games where, you're not perfect. You're not human. We even see that from the Alabamas and the Georgias and the Ohio States of the world. They have those games. But if you are consistently, playing to that standard, you'll find a way to play like a champion when you need to in those critical clutch moments down the stretch. By the way, we saw that from Texas. And Sark even talked about how last year where they had 8 games that were one-score games last season. So they were, they showed some fortitude. They showed resilience. They showed that clutch gene. Now can they play to a standard? And with the expectations and the burden of that expectation, everybody expecting you to be good. Last year, everybody thought Texas would be good, and we were hoping Texas was going to be good. Now, everybody in the country believes Texas is going to be one of the top 4 to 5 best teams in the country. That is a very different level of expectations. Now, can you perform and play at that standard with the world watching, but also the expectations that you're supposed to be the best? And I think that's something, but that's part of being Texas, right? That's what you sign up for when you come to Texas. But that's something new. That's something new for Sark too, right? Sark hasn't been here as a head coach really either.
Yeah, you're right about that. He's been part of it as an assistant coach, not as a head coach.
Not as a head coach. Now I don't think anybody is anxious about his ability to perform and achieve in this situation, but he's new to it. So I think that's the next standard. Whether Bobby Bowden quote, right? At first, when you first take over a program, you lose big, then you lose close, then you win close, and then you win big. This is his win big year. And the win big year would be playing to a standard that's much higher than your opponents. Now, when you play against Georgia and Michigan and Oklahoma and some of those other schools, even A&M in the SEC, they may take their game to the next level, and they may be a really good team too, as Mac Brown would always say. Happy birthday to Mac. Hey, they're on scholarship too. But I think that's the next test for Texas. The standard is the standard. It's really high. Can you play to it each and every week?
Well said right there, Rod, with happy birthday to Mac, and rest in peace to Edith, the First Lady of Texas football, who we lost this week, of course, Miss Edith Royal. at 98 years young, and what a vibrant and lovely person she was on this earth, and now rejoined with Daryl in heaven. And obviously the great conclusion to the Greg Swindell situation that we all followed this week. And thank goodness and prayers that all worked out in a positive way. Hey, Rod, tell folks about our friends at Duck Camp. You're wearing the hat. It's a great looking lid. Loving it. Tell them about Duck Camp, and we'll get some more super chats, more conversation on a Tuesday night live stream.
Yeah, I'm really excited. Got some Duck Camp gear that is on its way. As you guys see, I'm representing. I got 2 hats coming. Their new fall selection, that new fall collection is out, so you can go there and check it out. By the way, I would advise you to go check it out in a hurry at duckcamp.com before that fall selection sells out, because they got some great gear. Duck Camp is dedicated to giving people premium outdoor goods so they can outdoor good. Duck Camp is here to get you geared up for all of your outdoor needs, no matter what it is. Maybe you're an avid fisherman. Maybe you love to go hunting. Maybe you're like me and you love kind of the campfire camaraderie, sitting around with friends and family. Either way, the great outdoors and the camaraderie of the great outdoors is what Duck Camp is all about. It is a brand that understands that outdoor living and the good times and good friends associated with that outdoor life. So check it out for yourself. That's duckcamp.com, making premium outdoor goods so you can outdoor good. Duckcamp.com. The new fall selection is out. Go check it out for yourself. It is fantastic. They got great gear like the hat that I'm wearing, but also a lot of really new cool stuff at duckcamp.com.
It's a great looking hat. It's a really good looking hat. Any more super chats there, Matthew, that we need to get to and answer some questions?
I think we're all set. I will add a quick note on some defensive line recruiting. Of course, we reported earlier Joseph Mbachu out of Grayson County, Georgia, will be visiting for the UTSA game. That's an unofficial visit right now. He's currently committed to Florida. Texas, again, still being active on trying to flip a Kevin Wynn, a Myron Charles, of course, Caleb Bell, another kid out of Georgia that Texas recently got into the class, into the race for with an offer earlier in August. They're going to be working very heavily to get that defensive class looking to the likings of what it's expected to look like. Obviously, we've seen what Texas can do on the offensive line. Now it's time for the defensive line to catch up. Kenny Baker, PK, Coach Sark, Johnny Nance, and they're all working heavy to get that defensive line looking like it's supposed to be. And you just got to be patient there.
Yep.
And Friday is the Jamie French decision, right? Friday out in there in Jacksonville, Florida.
That's right. So Texas got some good momentum right now. Obviously, Nick Brooks, Jonah Williams could really start moving the ball a little bit with a big commitment from Jamie French there.
That's coming. There you go. Matthew, the biggest concern for the squad going into the season, things y'all are looking forward to seeing the most. Guys, let's each give one big concern. I'll just go running back. I mean, that's the obvious. That's the elephant in the room, right? I'll let you guys do the more nuance. But you just said earlier, CJ, I think when you talk about CJ Baxter, the way he was turning heads as a true freshman, became the first running back since Ricky Williams to start his first game as a freshman, which tells you how good he was. There's no way to overstate how big that is. I'm looking forward to seeing Jaden Blue and Trey Wisner and these guys step up. And as Rod talked about the interior and run the football between the tackles, that is my biggest concern right now. They do not, in my mind right now, unless we see it, have a big back that can churn yards late in games and short yardage. That's my biggest concern right now. Rod?
I'm going to go with the pass defense. I'm a DBS, so I got to keep that top of mind. I'll go with pass defense. Pass defense was an issue last season. Texas did upgrade, so I think we're all optimistic that they're going to be much better. But that's a big reason why you lost the Oklahoma game, one of the big reasons why you lost the game versus Washington. And honestly, the reason that U of H and TCU and K-State even got back into the games was because your pass defense was subpar. So I'll go pass defense. I think it will be better, though. It will be much better. Will it be a strength? It should be. That's the question. I don't know. I don't think it'll be a weakness anymore, but it should be a strength this year. Your pass defense.
Yeah, definitely. I'll go just kind of off the beaten path a little bit. How about linebacking fits and run defense?
Yeah, there you go.
That was kind of a work in progress with Anthony Hill a year ago. He's gotten much better at it since. I want to see it in a game. I want to see it be consistent, especially since you no longer have the big plug up front with Tavondre Sweat and Byron Murphy, right? You got to have your linebackers be responsible for those gap fits and those, just clogging the running lanes. So that's where I'm looking right now. It's not a huge concern. We didn't hear much about or see much about in the spring for running backs, busting 80-yard rushing touchdowns. However, It's still kind of one of those prove it until I see it kind of things, kind of.
Yeah, I mean, there's a narrative, thought about Harold Perkins, right, from LSU. Harold Perkins was kind of a freshman of the year in the SEC when they just let him freelance and be Harold Perkins, and they tried to move him to middle linebacker and kind of disappeared in that LSU defense. And he's an uber talented player, just like Anthony. That's what you need to see is that next progression, because if he does, Texas defense has a really, really high ceiling. Especially with what Rod said about the coverage end and the back end. Anthony Hill is one to watch, and that's a good. And you're replacing, Jalen Ford, who is a solid player, as you're going to find. Here we go, celebrating 100 years of DKR. I like that. Look at that. There's the logo that has now been painted. SEC now. This is it's getting closer, guys. 4 days out. By the time you wake up tomorrow, it'll be 3 to your first tailgate.
Hey, someone needs to get after that guy in the comments. Come on. Longhorns, fire up the pitchforks, go get him.
Yeah. That is cool. Oh, what, we got? What a dump.
That's a Pittsburgh fan chiming in. All right.
There you go. Random Pittsburgh fan.
That is so social media, right?
Hey,
we got a random Kenny Pickett fan the door talking about a dump.
Taking shots at Texas. Riverside,
thank you very much.
Hey, let me tell you about the final partner tonight, Autograph. Autograph is an app, and we all have apps, right? We got the phones going. We're right here. Autograph feeds your fandom. And I tell you, there's not much better. If you're a Texas football fan and you want everything in one place, best content, best tickets, best gear to fulfill your fandom, Autograph is the app you have to have. It's a full-time job to be a fan. We appreciate you being a full-time viewer and watcher of the On Texas Football channel. Well, here's an app right here that has been curated to have everything you want on one app. You've got the app has curated content of all things Texas, including the On Texas Football shows, replays that you need to see, all your tickets you need to buy, all the gear you want to buy for your Texas. It's all there. It's all there. You don't have to search all over the place to find it. It's right there. Use the promo code On Texas when you go to and download that Autograph app. You feed your fandom. Makes it all simple. It's so again, being a full-time job with all your full-time jobs and everything else, there it is. Autograph. Thank you to them tonight and every Tuesday night to make that happen. That is an easy thing you should all be doing. This says being a Pittsburgh fan is a punishment enough.
Well said. Like that.
Yeah, and go enjoy. Russell Wilson or Justin Fields this year. That's going to be fun for them. That's NFL level, but All right, guys. Well, it's been a lot of fun. Looking forward to the watch along coming up on Saturday. Our first edition of that. We'll start that right about 2:20 before the kickoff of Texas and Colorado State. I know you guys will be back all day tomorrow. Coffee and football. The show's tomorrow on the On Texas channel. There you go. State of the program 11:30. Sark Reactions 1:30, and Longhorn Livestream at 7 tomorrow night, and it's all there right there at the OnTexasFootball.com channel. You guys feeling it? Butterflies, game week, ready?
Ready to roll. I can't wait. I'm ready to go, man. I'm ready. I'm so tired of talking about football. I just want to watch some football, some actual football that matters.
All right, guys. Have a good night. Thank you to Matthew. Thanks to all the super chats and all the people that weighed in and viewed it. And CJ, great stuff. Rod, great stuff. Let's do this again next week.
Thanks, E. Hook 'em.